Well, my fellow hair astronauts, hope you're doing well today. We are going to be talking about a topic as old as time itself, as old as hair has been deemed something desirable by the masses, by men and women alike. Today, we're going to be talking about the differences between different base types. And this right here is just kind of a starter guide. If you're looking to get into hair systems, if you're trying to figure out, man, should I try something new? And what you're going to encounter, this is the second up, what you're going to encounter if you're switching from one type to the other. So today what we'll do is we'll talk about skin bases, we'll talk about lace bases, we'll talk about poly bases, and we'll talk about how you go and switch in between the different ones. So to start, we're going to start with a skin base. This right here is a skin base. This model right here specifically is the Eros from Levivid. This right here has taken me literally around the world. I've worn probably a good 20 of those systems in my entire life, and they are always tried, true, and reliable. They're a 0.02 millimeter or 0.03 millimeter thickness base, which means that they're the thinnest thin skin on the market. And generally speaking, on the website, on Levivid's website, they say that they last about 1 to 2 months. I've experienced nothing other than them lasting 3 to 4 months, if not longer. I've always had them for 3 to 4 months. The reason why they might last a little bit shorter time though than other poly units is naturally because they're so thin that if you're not very careful with when you take it on and off and things like that, you can potentially tear the base. But as long as you're careful, they can last a long time. So why would you want to get a skin base? What's the advantages to it? Well, number one, very natural scalp look is one of the big things. The second thing is it's very easy to adhere glue and tape to it, as well as to take off the adhesive residue. And it's more realistic than lace in most cases. However, sometimes lace can take the cake. The cons to it, though, is that they're not very breathable, so they can be hotter. The thin skins, the ultra thin skins, like what I showed you, theoretically are a little bit more fragile, so you do need to watch out for that. And the edges might be a little bit harder to blend than some of the other units, like lace, that we'll talk about in a little bit. So you need to make sure that they're done properly. So that's a little bit about poly systems. Let's move to lace. This right here is an old Helios from Levivid that I've used, and as you can see right here, it's all lace, right? So you can actually see through the unit, right? You can see that it is basically a mesh. Now, there's two types of laces, which is the French lace and then obviously the Swiss lace. This is a Swiss lace, and a Swiss lace is basically just a finer lace than the French lace, finer material, so it doesn't last as long. So what are the benefits to it? Well, this is going to be the most breathable hair system out there that you can get. It's going to be really, really nice. And you're not going to have to worry about being hot or anything like that. So that's the biggest use that people use it for. Also, a lot of people really, really like the hairlines that you get from a lace. It can look a little bit more natural, and it might take the cake versus a like 0.02 poly. They are very comfortable for long wear, and they're generally more realistic in most cases, especially the Swiss lace. However, here's the things that you need to be concerned with. Usually they're more fragile than the polys, and the lace edges can require a little bit more care and maintenance because with them, it's easier for them to like fray than the plastic. So sometimes people that are not very careful with their lace systems can tear them from the edges, and that can shorten their lifespan. The other thing, adhesives can be trickier with lace, so you need to know what you're doing, how to take it on, how to take it off, all that kind of stuff. And finally, a full lace system can show a little bit more when the hair is wet, because you don't have that kind of plastic base that kind of mimics your scalp. Instead, you do have that mesh underneath. So it can show a little bit more when your hair is wet. Now, the third type of hair system that we have is, of course, the hybrid unit. So this right here is the Aries. So as you can see, right, there is lace in the center right here. There is poly all the way around. And this is the front right here that I'll show you. So you can see there's lace right here in the front, all the way around. In the back, there's more of it. lace in the center. So the advantages to this is like you get the balance, the best of both worlds, so to speak. You know, you get the breathability of the lace, like so that way you don't have that heat trapped in your scalp if you're like working out and things like that. The skin can be very easy to attach on the edges, which is where most of the adhesive generally goes, which is great. So this combination is really satisfying. And this is a good start for beginners who want realism, but with less fragility. However, they are more complex to manufacture. Usually they're a little bit more expensive, which depending on who you are as a beginner can be a good thing or a bad thing. If you have a very small budget, it can be something that you kind of have to, stomach. However, they do require you to be careful with, the trimming and the blending, just like the polys. Because it's not the lace, so be careful when you're getting them blended in. Now with all of these, the biggest difference that you're gonna have is going from like a poly to a lace. I think that's the hardest one, the transition that you can go, and it took me many years to make that transition personally, because I just like the poly and I was satisfied. But personally, I've really grown into liking lace a lot these days. The thing that a lot of people talk about that can be difficult with a lace is dealing with the adhesives, right? Because if you go too long with a poly, well, there's not really much of a, there's no issue with it. Like, yes, it's a little bit harder to clean up, the adhesive, it just takes longer and stuff like that. With a lace, if you go too long, it can actually kind of like melt through the lace and go up into the hair. That's not something you want. It's not a fun time. Nobody wants it. You know what I mean? So you have to really watch your time intervals that you change your adhesive on to make sure you're not really like letting the glue completely just disintegrate through the lace. Now with the other thing with the lace is, for some people, they say that adhesives can actually kind of tear some of the hair out. Personally, not an issue if you know how to take the adhesive off correctly. And the basic way to do that is that you have to heat up the glue and release the attachment. So there's products for that, like lace release, as well as you could just use hot water and let it kind of like unadhere, I think is the word. These are the two main methods, and in my experience, if you just take your time with it, you're not going to lose the hair on the lace unit, but you need to be careful and you need to go slow. So that's really like the biggest things that you need to watch out for. That's what kind of I'm going to give you for pro tips just to kind of get going. Now, if you are if you are somebody that is just getting into hair systems, I really recommend that you just go stock. Just get one of these units that, like I just mentioned, like the Helios is great, the Eros is great, and just go stock, right? Don't go crazy with custom stuff. Get used to wearing it, cleaning it, maintaining it, all that kind of stuff. If you rip it or something, it's not as big of a deal like as it is with a custom, because customs are more expensive. But you need to do that. You need to start with a stock system, and then get your proper tools, right? Like your adhesive remover, get your tape, get your base cleaner. A mannequin makes it much easier. I recommend a mannequin if you can get one of those. Even if it's just like the top dome, the top part of a mannequin, that's good too. I really suggest that you invest in a barber when you first do this thing. Make sure that they're cutting in and blending it and making it look good. Don't try to make it as cheap as possible. You're going to spend some money on yourself. Spend it the right way. You know what I'm saying? So with all that being said, hope you're well. Hopefully this takes you through on some knowledge and gets you going towards your first hair system. Talk soon.